Good morning. Please welcome the Provost and Academic Vice President of the University, Dr. Jennifer Turpin.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome back. We have a lot to be excited about this year. Not only do we have a new president, but we also have several new members of the university's leadership team, new staff, and 50 new full-time faculty who are an incredibly accomplished and diverse group of teacher scholars. I'm happy to report that enrollments are very healthy and the incoming class is academically strong and diverse. I want to thank all of you, especially the enrollment management team, the deans, the faculty, the staff, for helping us to exceed our goals at a time when many universities are experiencing shortfalls and declines. The word is out about the University of the Best City Ever, and it's thanks to all of you. I'd like to now invite Julia Dowd, Director of University Ministry, to the podium for an opening prayer. Julia.
Good morning. It's wonderful to see you all together. As we begin again this year our work together, preparing to greet a new community of students and colleagues, and at the same time as we're cherishing these waning days of summer and still with memories and adventures from this summer past fresh in our minds, I'd like to share a poem this morning for our opening prayer. The poem is called "The Summer Day" by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who's moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who's gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Julia. We have a few special guests with us today. We are extremely honored to have with us the university's second diversity scholar visiting professor, Janice Mirikitani, San Francisco Poet Laureate and co-founding president of the Glide Foundation. This fall, Ms. Mirikitani will teach an undergraduate course in the College of Arts and Sciences titled Poetry and Poverty, Transformation from Dust, where students will explore the issues of poverty and oppression through the use of poetry, personal narrative, and direct community engagement with San Francisco's Tenderloin neighborhood. Ms. Mirikitani is joined today by her husband and co-founding president of the Glide Foundation, Reverend Cecil Williams. Under Reverend Williams' leadership, Glide Memorial Church became a 10,000-member congregation of all races, ages, genders, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and religions. And the Glide Foundation is the largest provider of social services in the city of San Francisco. Ms. Mirikitani and Reverend Williams, we are so honored to have you here with us at USF today. Thank you. And we're thrilled that our first diversity scholar visiting professor, Dr. Clarence Jones, is back with us this year as part of the USF family and teaching his course From Slavery to Obama. Dr. Jones, thank you. Over the past year, we've hired several new members of the leadership team. We have a new dean of the School of Management on board. Dr. Liz Davis, would you please stand? Dr. Jeff Hamrick has moved into a leadership position as the new Vice Provost for Budget, Planning, and Institutional Effectiveness. Jeff, please stand to be recognized. And our new Vice Provost for Strategic Enrollment Management is here, Dr. Bob Spadig. Bob. Some of our ASUSF student leaders are here with us today, too. Eva Long, President, Stephanie McNamee, VP of Internal Affairs, Nick Wu, VP of Business Administration, Larry Figueroa, VP of Public Relations, Jacqueline Murillo, VP of Mission, and Madeline Shelton, VP of Sustainability. Our student leaders, would you please stand? And as our tradition here at USF, I would like to ask all of our new faculty and staff to please stand so that we may welcome you to USF. And now for the heart of our program. I know it was hard to say goodbye to Father Prevet. It was hard for me, it was hard for all of us. But I can't think of a more worthy successor than Father Paul J. Fitzgerald of the Society of Jesus, the University of San Francisco's 28th president. Chairman of our Board of Trustees, Tom Malloy, who regrettably could not be here today, asked that I convey to you how pleased the board is about the Presidential Search Committee's selection of Father Fitzgerald. Chairman Malloy wanted to express his thanks to the search committee as well as the search advisory committee members for their work in recruiting Paul. We wish to particularly recognize Trustee Vice Chair Emeritus Chuck Smith, who led the search and who is here today. Chuck, thank you for your tremendous service to the university community. As you may know, President Fitzgerald took office on August 1st. But I've had the good fortune to know Paul for over 10 years through our work as chief academic officers and deans. Let me tell you what I know about him. First, he's a very good man. He completely embodies what it means to be a Jesuit. He has dedicated himself to higher education, to the Society of Jesus, and to serving others for his entire life. He is an intellectual and a first-rate academic with a global perspective and an outstanding legacy as a teacher, scholar, and higher education leader. And as you'll see, he also has a great sense of humor. Paul has worked in higher education for more than 20 years, most recently as the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at Fairfield University in Connecticut, where he oversaw the recruitment and retention of faculty, developed curriculum, and worked with the deans to direct academic programs. Previously, he worked at Santa Clara University as a faculty member, associate dean, and senior associate dean for the College of Arts and Sciences. He has served on the boards of trustees at Loyola University Chicago and Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. Paul's outstanding qualifications, sterling academic experience, broad global perspective, and strong ties to the Bay Area make him uniquely suited to lead the university community and the next generation of USF students to change the world from here. Would you please join me in giving a warm USF welcome to our new president, Father Paul Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, hello.
So thank you.
I didn't really anticipate that we'd be dressed alike.
Yes, we've got that black and white thing going on here.
I guess I should have thought of that.
And thank you for those very kind words. You read my script really well. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thank all of you for being here this morning. And my thanks to Chuck and to Teresa Wynn and to everyone who was involved in the search process. It was humane. It was very engaging. It gave me a chance to really get to know who you are as a community, and also I think it gave a lot of folks a chance to at least meet me, and then that's going to be the work of this semester and this year, of meeting you and being socialized into this community so that I can lead from the middle and to help us to continue to fulfill our dreams and our vision of higher education in the best city ever.
So I think everyone knows that this year's convocation is taking the form of a conversation with our new president. So let us just begin by getting to know you a little bit. I don't know if many people in the community know that you actually grew up in the South Bay, that USF is a significant place to you. Earlier in your life, you were ordained to the priesthood at St. Ignatius Church in 1992. Can you just tell us a bit about your family and your upbringing?
So, like our Lord and Savior, I was born in the South and raised in the North. It's kind of a Bible joke. So my parents, my mother was born in Hollywood, my father was born in North Hollywood. My grandfather was a studio carpenter and joined the IWW, so he was a wobbly, and was thrown out of Hollywood after the Great Strike. My other grandfather was a screenwriter and worked for a couple of different studios writing screenplays until he was blacklisted in the 50s. So we've been thrown out of better towns than this. I'm the middle of 5 children. My older brother and sister started parochial school in Los Angeles. After a couple years, my father said to my mother, "Diane, we can get D's for free in the public schools." And also, he was just embarrassed every week going and apologizing to the sisters about my brother's behavior. So I was a public school kid all the way through high school. I didn't know, I'm first-generation college student. My mother got her bachelor's degree 8 years after I got mine. She went on and got her master's, and she was a special ed teacher. My father owned a Baskin and Robbins, and was able to feed the family and keep us with a lot of good dessert. I didn't know you were supposed to apply to more than one school, so I applied at Santa Clara University. Fortunately, they let me in. I graduated from Santa Clara in 1980. I did come to USF regularly in the late 70s. There were some great parties down just off of the Panhandle at some houses occupied by USF students. So I guess that was my first exposure to this vibrant community. I entered the Jesuits in 1982. It was law school or the novitiate. Law school or the novitiate. I chose. Here I am 32 years later, happily a Jesuit still. And yeah.
That's great, thank you. And I understand before you entered the Society of Jesus, you worked as a chef. Tell us about that.
A very dense version of it. I was taking a history class at Santa Clara, and I mispronounced every German word in my presentation. You know, Wagner's operas were staged in the city of Bayreuth, Bayreuth, you know, and the professor laughed at my German pronunciation and everything, so I said, okay, I'm going to take 1/4 of German, so at least I can pronounce, I can say Weltschmerz and Weltanschauung and, you know, toss those little words out. I liked it, so I ended up going to Switzerland and working in a grocery store for a summer and living with a family and really learning Swiss German, which is Elliot here? Elliot and I speak Swiss German with each other. It's pretty hilarious. And then I repeated the program. They found summer jobs for us. So I went to Strasbourg in France and spent a summer cooking at a big restaurant in the train station in Strasbourg. And then with that came back and got a job as the second chef at the Hilton in Sunnyvale. Absolutely unqualified. I had like 3 months experience, and I'm bossing around people who've got like 10 years, you know, cooking experience. And I had a Julia Child's book hidden in my backpack, and I'd go into the bathroom and I'd like memorize something and then go out and like make it for 500 people.
So you were showing your Jesuit ingenuity already at that time.
Staying 4 pages ahead of the kids. Not that any of you have ever done that, right? No.
So can you say a little bit more about what inspired you to become a Jesuit?
Boy, you know, why do you fall in love with your spouse? You know, and why do you stay in love with your spouse for 20, 30, 40 years? When I was an undergrad, I had a couple of Jesuits as professors, and that idea of these 40 guys who were so smart, but they lived together, they were so oriented towards the students, but they had this sort of, I don't know, this community. I'll have to say, too, as an undergraduate, I did sell the Socialist Daily Worker newspaper. I was very much into socialism, you know, and then I just liked that idea of a communal, you know, a commune, really, basically. Jesuits were a 450-year-old, very successful Marxist organization. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. It kind of works, but you have to be really motivated, and it has to be voluntary. But there were some Jesuits I met as professors, and then Paul Locatelli, who was the AVP at the time, I got a letter from him in the mail, I'm a sophomore, asking me if I would be one of 2 student representatives on the committee to revise the core curriculum. The other was a junior, Janet Napolitano. She's done really well. And if you're able to come to the inauguration, the installation, she'll be one of the speakers. She kindly agreed to cross the bay and come over and talk about higher education in California. But you know, I met Paul Locatelli, and these guys were just fascinating, and they were interesting, and so I gave it a try. Mm-hmm. It's worked out okay so far.
Can you say a little bit about what you're most passionate about, and people want to know what annoys you? I'm hoping it's not type A provosts.
No. I mean, in her very kind introduction, you know, Jenny alluded to the fact, or mentioned very clearly, that we've known each other and worked together for 10 years. I have amazing respect for Jenny, and I'm really thrilled with the way she has brought, you know, the academic division of this university forward to the place it is right now. It's very attractive, it's very successful, and so I'm a fan. And no, I don't mind at all. My dissertation was directed by a woman. I had women supervisors all my time at Santa Clara until Adam Yu was my dean. I like working with and I like working for women, to tell you the truth. What am I passionate about? The thing I love the most, and it'll take me a while before I can get back into the classroom, but I love those moments in the classroom where the students' eyes light up. I love those moments where, you know, they just drop a whole layer of depth down into greater understanding of themselves and the world and the interplay between the two. I love the way Jesuit education allows students to make that deep journey in, so that at the same time they can make that deep journey out. And they can meet others from other backgrounds and other life worlds with awe and respect and wonder and curiosity, because they have also kind of been able to find in themselves that depth of mystery and that depth of goodness that they recognize is present in everyone else. So I really love Jesuit education. I think there's something, mostly what Jesuit education is about what all higher education is about. It's intellectual rigor and academic discipline and all these kinds of things, but then the secret sauce here is that, you know, practice and reflection and civic engagement and social responsibility, and also just that deep spirituality of wonder and gift. So that's what I love. What annoys me, there's really one thing that I really don't like, and that's cruelty. I don't like cruelty. I don't like it when people are rude to waiters or flight attendants. I can't imagine a more difficult job than flight attendant. You can't get away from these people for another 3 hours, you know. But yeah, and kindness is something that I find very attractive.
Great, thank you. So let's talk about why you came to USF. Not only did USF choose you, but you chose USF. What was it that drew you to the University of San Francisco?
So, you know, we Jesuits, we have these 3 vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And the way obedience works is that, you know, my work, my assignment, is really determined in a conversation with me and my provincial superior. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I had been a dozen years at Santa Clara University, and I loved Santa Clara. It was my alma mater. My father had just died. My mother was, at the time, 70 and in very good health. And at the time, I had 4 siblings who were close by. So I asked permission and was given permission to seek out a position elsewhere. And so I went to Fairfield in Connecticut. As Sonny Manuel said at the time, you know, it's small enough that you can get your arms around it, but it's dynamic enough that you know, you can really get a lot of experience. Unfortunately, it was the summer of 2009, and the stock market had crashed, and everything was a disaster. So as I got to Fairfield, you know, the bed really was on fire when I got into it. So it was 5 years of a lot of struggle, but we made a lot of changes. We grew, and we came out of it, you know, as a faculty, as a staff, as a university, stronger, more diverse, and with a better global outreach. I was kind of coming to a place where I really wanted to come back to the province. I got permission. Well, Mike Weiler, who's the provincial superior, gave the search committee here my name and then told me that he had given them my name. It's kind of the way obedience works. Chuck can tell you the inside story. And then Mike also gave me permission not to be available for the searches in St. Louis and Milwaukee. St. Louis, Milwaukee, San Francisco. You do the math. But the more I looked and the more I spoke to people here, the more excited I became about USF, the more I came to understand in what great shape we are in, how dynamic we are, how far we've come, but also the potential for more that's here. So as I went through the conversation that led to a phone call at 9:30 at night, I'm sitting in my easy chair back in Connecticut, 9:30 in the evening, and it says Tom Malloy, and I figured, well, he's not calling me at 9:30 at night to tell me I didn't get the job. So, you know, I did my little happy dance, and so it really was, you know, I hope and expect a good process. And now, you know, this year is going to be about me meeting you, and I'll be meeting you in kind of logical groups, departments and programs and teams. But also we want to set up just random groups of 25 people And the only thing you have in common is maybe your names start with the same letter, and you're an employee here at USF. So it'll be a chance for us to meet each other in ways to have then unstructured conversation about your hopes and dreams. And I think you'll find with me that I tend to be very inclusive and very inductive. I like, for us to think, from the bottom up, or from the outside in, or from the middle out, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And one member of the community wanted to know how you'd like the University of San Francisco to differentiate itself from other universities and even the other Jesuit universities.
Who are the philosophers in the room? Let's go back there. So, there are 200 Jesuit institutions of higher ed around the world. And if you go to our university in Bogota, or in Jakarta, or in Tokyo, or in Boston, each one is very different because each one is anchored and rooted in the city in which it's built and in which it's grown up and which it serves. And Ignatius, when he started, founding schools, and the Jesuits started founding schools 450 years ago, we always thought of the school twofold. One is to educate the students who are at the school. The other is to reach out and be of service to the city in which that school is located. So the schools were always platforms for kind of a larger urban ministry and urban strategy. So 200 universities and higher education institutions around the world, each one has the specificity of the city that it's located in. And then but there is and this is the philosophy reference, Wittgenstein would say, there's a family resemblance among these universities. There's a family resemblance. So if you walk onto the campus of Georgetown, or if you walk onto the campus of our new university in Sevilla, you'll say, wow, this is really cool. It's nicely anchored in the city. It's serving marginalized communities, and it's engaging the leaders of the city in those conversations around what's just and good and humane and sustainable. It's not for nothing that the Jesuits, we tend to name our universities after the city or the neighborhood in which we locate them. Georgetown University, Fordham on Fordham Road, Boston College, USF. Mm-hmm. It's not for nothing that we take the name of the city as the name of our university.
And in terms of your first impressions here, what has surprised you most?
That San Francisco has a lot of really good restaurants. That's not surprising. It's not a surprise so much as a confirmation, but I am deeply impressed as I meet you and as I meet faculty and staff from across the university. And I've been down to the San Jose campus, and I'm slated already to go up to Santa Rosa. And so and I've been downtown now to Howard Street. But what really impresses me is the affection that people have for this community and the loyalty that people have for our project. It's more than a job. What's the little story about you walking along and there's this guy, laying stone, he's a mason, and you ask the first guy, there's three of them, when you ask the first guy, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm building this wall. Okay, he's got a job. Another guy is doing the same work. You say, what are you doing? He says, I'm providing for my family. And he says, oh, he's got a career. And you ask the third guy, what are you doing? He says, I'm building Chartres Cathedral. He says, he's got a vocation. I think a lot of us, we have a vocation. So.
Many people submitted questions asking about how your leadership style might differ from Father Prevet's. And other than the fact that you like sports, sorry, I couldn't resist it. How would you say your approach to the presidency might differ from Father Prevet's, or maybe similar? I think people just generally want to know about your leadership style.
Well, you'll be able to make judgments about differences in our personalities, so we'll just kind of bracket that one. We had the same formation, and so the first 31st, 32nd, 33rd, 34th, 35th general congregations of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits have kind of received instruction from the church at the Second Vatican Council to renew ourselves, go back to our founding documents, our founding inspiration. And so, that turn towards the service of faith and the promotion of justice, which is constituent with that service of faith, Steve and I come out of that same formation and that same orientation. So I think we have the same worldview about what Jesuit education is. And I think we both have the same way of embracing people from all walks of life as equal partners in that project, because it really is something that people from every faith tradition can embrace, and people from no particular faith tradition, but from a philosophical stance. Jewish people might want to talk about tikkun, but we can find our own vocabulary to talk about the way we're going to heal the world. I think you'll find that, as I mentioned a moment ago, I like a more inductive way of approaching things. One example, so years ago, Marilyn Fernandez and her Scheffrin and I, 3 faculty members at Santa Clara, we were asked by Paulo Catelli, who was president at the time, to do a kind of an assessment of justice education at Santa Clara. And Paul had us in his office, and he said, now I want you to go out and ask the faculty and find out how people are using principles of Catholic social teaching to inform their teaching and research. And we left the room, and we immediately decided to be disobedient. And we asked people at Santa Clara just to talk about how they incorporate justice, just justice, no adjectives. And so we got a huge amount of response, and people talking about gender justice and environmental justice and social justice. They were talking about justice in all different ways. And then that led us to write this sort of report and do an inventory that led to the first Justice Conference. There were first 3 regional conferences, and then there was a national conference, and then we've had a couple since then. And it's been a way, I think, for faculty at schools across the country, Jesuit schools across the country, to find kindred spirits at other schools who are researching in a similar area. And it's helped to create networks of scholars who can use their scholarship and their teaching to help students, for example, to get into learned advocacy. So it's not just kind of something that feels good, it's sentimental, but it's got real strong rigor underneath it, good social analysis, strong rhetorical arguments. So.
Thank you. How would you characterize the role of the president, and what will your priorities be as president?
I arrive here, actually, could the vice presidents stand? And could the academic deans stand? And could the members of the senior leadership, members of the leadership team stand? There is diversity and depth and dedication. And so I come in feeling very confident. You can sit down, please. But I come in very confident, and Opinder talks about how, he's got such a good operational team now that he doesn't have to every day oversee the operations of his division. And I think we have that kind of depth here. So what's my role? My role is about half the time it's going to be me out in the community telling our story, telling the stories of our students, telling the stories of our faculty and staff, so that people can gain a fresh image of us and know who we are today and invest in us. Invest in endowed chairs, invest in endowed scholarships, invest in current programmatic funds for projects. You want to bring a group of faculty and staff together from across the country or around the world. We want to find the resources for you to be able to really fulfill, our mission. Half the time is going to be me here on campus. Sometimes, in those symbolic roles of bringing the community together in good times, but also, to comfort each other in tragedy and loss. So, I want to know everything that's going on. I'll comment on some things. I'll act on a few things. John the 23rd, Pope John the 23rd, that was his sort of leadership style. I think that's pretty wise. He did do the Second Vatican Council, so.
In that vein, could you talk a little bit about your fundraising experience, since you've identified that as a major priority?
Yeah, it's never been really a part of my job description, but at Santa Clara, I ended up being sort of the chaplain to the Board of Fellows. There were the Board of Trustees, who owned the university and had fiduciary responsibility. There was the Board of Regents, who had, an expectation of generosity. And then there was the Board of Fellows, that was the fun group. And they put on a big party every year. That was a fundraiser. And they took a trip together every year. So I became like their unofficial chaplain, and we take 80 people through northern Spain to visit the Ignatian sites, and take 35 people through France, to kind of follow the Ignatian story. Mm-hmm. It was right after the first Gulf War, and freedom fries, and and so a lot of their fellows were afraid. A lot of them were afraid to go to France because they thought the French were still mad at us. They were not mad at us; they were just shaking their heads. What were you thinking? And then to Rome. So I spent a lot of time with them, and a lot of that was just sort of building relationships with people to get them excited and engaged with the university. At Fairfield, it took the form of actual conversations that led to gifts. So, one was a conversation with a fellow, Richard Lawrence, from a Jewish family in New York City, who, inherited a house from his mother and couldn't sell it. It cost $20 million to build. They had it on the market for 10. They took it off the market at 8.8. They gave it to us, valued at 4.6. We kept it for a few years and then sold it. And then that became a nice endowment in the School of Nursing. Just last October, this couple comes out of the blue, and they wanted to talk about literacy. And they wanted to close the gap between Latino and African American children and white children across the state of Connecticut in the 4th grade in literacy scores. And the way they explained it to me is that, pre-K through 3rd, children learn to read. 4th grade and onward, children read to learn. And if you're not at grade level in the 4th grade, you're going to be behind forever. And half of the inmates in the Connecticut state prison system are functionally illiterate adults. So it's a social justice question, it's an opportunity question. I was the 3rd person they spoke to. They visited 8 universities across Connecticut. Yale never returned their call. They were only going to give $4 million, So October, I met them the first time. December 29th, we shook hands, and they gave us $4.4 million. Mm-hmm. $4 million for endowment, for scholarship money for graduate students to become experts in literacy education, with a commitment then that they would serve public inner-city schools. And then, Chip said, in addition to our money, I've got a lot of friends, and we're going to go out. And so the new dean there has a long list of people to meet. And a lot of times it's just, after the first conversation, I told them all the things we're doing, and then I called up the dean of the School of Education. I just said this and this and this. Is that true? She said, yeah, true enough. Yeah. We kind of. So a big part of being on campus is meeting you and meeting with you and learning more and more about, we got a lot of programs. I got to learn a lot. Yes. I got to learn a lot. But then I need to be able to talk to people about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And then, it's just to get folks excited about, people do want to give money to higher education, but they want their gift to matter, and they want their gift to be a game changer for a specific population or for a and so I'll need you actually to go out and talk to people about what you do and how you do it.
Thank you. This is another question from a community member. As you know, our students, including our graduate students, often have great difficulty finding housing, and it has become really impossible for staff and faculty to raise families in San Francisco. Is USF destined to become a commuter campus that pulls its shutters closed at night?
Yes and no. Not the shutter part, but we have 2,300 beds on campus, give or take. Usually one body per bed. It's a Catholic school, come on. We've always had, we have graduate students, we have, juniors and seniors who do live off into the community. I know Peter Novak and his group are doing an awful lot to help, place students in housing nearby. But it's a challenge to us because the city is on fire, you know, economically. There's so much going on and so many people are coming in and they are building more housing stock. One of the things I hope that we all can do for and with the city of San Francisco is to host conversations about inclusion and social justice and socioeconomic diversity so that the city remains, you know, home for everyone. The African American community has declined. The African American community has declined every year for the last 20 years in terms of its size in the city of San Francisco. So there are real questions of inclusion and justice that we all want to raise. More specifically for us, yeah, we need to really be creative and think. We've got some possibilities for some more building on campus, for some more student housing. And so we're going to line up the benefactors to support us in that. But you know, at night, no, this is a very vibrant place. I think that it stays active well into the night. Yes. And two, along with that, yes, we want the campus to be a very vibrant place for our students and for the folks who work here, but also we want the city and the Western Addition and to see the campus as a place where the community can gather, whether it's for athletic events, whether it's for mayoral fora. I know that George Gascon, the DA, loves to come here, and I had a great lunch with him. He wants to come back. The chief of police was here recently, one of our alums. So there are folks who do recognize that we all have created a center and a gathering place for the city, and I want to emphasize that.
Thank you. This is another question from the community. USF has made many steps on the path towards comprehensive internationalization or globalization, one of the hallmarks of which was us receiving the Senator Paul Simon Award in 2010 for comprehensive campus internationalization. But can you just say a little bit about what globalization means to you? So I think the United Nations a couple years ago kind of made the official announcement that for the first time in the history of humanity, the majority of human beings live in cities. We are the planet's most invasive species. I had the fortune of living in China for a summer. I had the fortune of teaching for a semester at the Jesuit Theologate in Nairobi. You know, the majority of people on the planet don't live like us. The majority of the people on the planet live in very, very harsh destitution. And you know, the majority of urban dwellers are slum dwellers. The Jesuits in Nairobi had a piece of property out in Karen, which is a very nice suburb. You remember the movie Out of Africa? Karen Blixen. So they named the suburb after her, where she had her coffee plantation. And the big Catholic universities out there, the Jesuits bought land out there, but then decided not to build a school there. They turned it into a retreat house and a retirement community and a cemetery. So the old Jesuits, they can pray right next to their graves. Architecturally, it's a little schifo. But instead, they found a piece of land right in Wilson Estates next to the Kibera slum. And Kibera is one of the biggest slums in Africa. And so the Jesuits, they get their theological education with a foot in the library and a foot in the slum. You know, we've got to find ways to do that. About 15% of our students, undergraduate, graduate, are coming here directly from other countries to study with us. But then a very large percentage of our domestic students are either first generation or second generation from immigrant families. So we have an amazing amount of global diversity here on campus. One of the great things about diversity, at a large public university, you can have a lot of socioeconomic, ethnic, religious diversity, but in 4 years, people at a campus can leave with their prejudices reinforced. Bringing a diverse community together requires us to find a common ground that can become a higher ground where we can speak about our values, and we find those values in an overlapping consensus among these various traditions that are present. So globalization is a daily project for us to meet each other with great curiosity and respect and awe. And then I like to talk about inclusive excellence. We will be an excellent university to the degree that we are inclusive, and that's
ethnicity, race, socioeconomic class, sexual orientation. It's all of the richness of our diversity must be brought together then in inclusive excellence. And then that equips every one of our students with confidence in her or his intercultural skills, confidence in her ability to walk into another culture, into different life worlds, with some tools, with some confidence, but again, with a certain sense of awe and reverence. So globalization, I mean, it started 500 years ago, it started 800, you can pick, when, cultures, I mean, in the Iliad, or in the Odyssey, Odysseus moves around the Mediterranean easily because, there was that Greek world already that had a sort of an international overlay over these various cultures. So it's nothing new about globalization, although the technology has made it so that we are instantly aware of disasters and catastrophes and difficult situations and wars around the world, to the point where we are at risk of becoming hardened and inured to suffering. So we have to allow our hearts to be broken regularly so that our spines are stiffened.
What do you see as the, yeah, thank you. What do you see as the most pressing challenges facing USF?
We have to manage growth. We have to manage, this dispersed campus throughout the city and throughout the Bay Area, and I understand our footprint in Southern California is getting bigger through an increased partnership with the Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange. So we have marvelous opportunities and then our online degree programs, so that virtual USF, which can be everywhere on the planet. And so we have to manage growth, and we have to manage this spread of our mission, maintaining quality. Maintaining it's a USF degree in whatever format and in whatever location. It's a USF degree, and it means something. It means not only intellectual rigor, but it means that person has developed integrative ways of thinking and knowing and doing. And that person has been sort of ruined by a nagging call to civic engagement and social justice. And can't, easily lose himself, herself at the mall looking at really expensive handbags without wondering who made that and how do they live. Yeah, managing growth, and then, keeping our egos in check as we get all this adulation for being as good as we are. And how can we remain humble? How can we be very successful and remain very humble so that we're focused on the other? It's cura personalis. We care for that whole person who is our student. We care for that whole person who is our colleague. And then along with cura personalis, care for the person, is cura apostolica. So each of us, we care for that person in front of us, but we also care for the whole project. Each one of us has cura apostolica, care for the work. So we're all collectively responsible for the whole project, even as each one of us is personally responsible for our part in it.
Can you comment on any plans that you may have to try to wean USF off of our tuition dependence? Harvard University charges tuition even though they don't have to. We will always be dependent on tuition, always. To a greater or lesser degree, is it going to be 85% of the operating budget? Will it be 75% of the operating budget? In some ways, having a very large endowment, Yale University in 2008, 2009, they saw their endowment drop by 1/3 in value, and they had to let 1,000 people go. Because they had 1,000 people whose salaries were coming off of endowment funds. So, and places like USF with our tuition dependency, we were able to ride out that storm pretty nicely. So tuition dependent, well, grocery stores are dependent on their customers paying for groceries. We'll always be dependent on people paying for our degree programs. There's sticker price, and then there's actual net tuition. And
what percentage of our students pay sticker price? 15%, 20%? And oftentimes they come from families that can afford that. USF has the highest percentage of Pell-eligible students of any of the 28 Jesuit universities. 28% of our students come from Pell-eligible families, which means that their families have very low disposable incomes. We graduate those students 4 years later with an average accumulated debt of about $29,000, $30,000. And that's not just an average, it's a mode. For the math folks here, it's a mode. Which means it's a pretty tightly clustered. It's not like some are at 5 and some are at 100. You know, and that's very reasonable, very affordable. So we are doing a very good job of being an accessible university for a broad range of people from different socioeconomic classes. And we do it in a way, I've seen universities that are predatory in their lending practices, and they're graduating kids with $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 of debt, and a degree that's not that valuable, because it's not a very prestigious school. No, it's scandalous. You know, we have to be virtuous in every aspect of our operation. And so, you know, the average student, the average that people pay for college over the last decade has gone up at universities overall. It was in, the College Board did a study recently. You know, our increase of actual price paid is lower than increases in healthcare and far lower than increases in daycare. For those times when you think you're babysitting your students, it's much more expensive, actually. Daycare is more expensive than college. So we just want to be very careful that we don't overburden families, and we want to be careful that we retain our diversity, our socioeconomic diversity. And the thing too is that we are very much a knowledge-based industry. So pretty much most of our expenses are people. And because we have become more accessible to people with physical disabilities and, you know, people with certain psychological handicaps, but with proper medication, with proper support, they can succeed, so access. But we've built out over time student services so that we can support and lead to success students who come with certain challenges. You know, most of our students come here at the age of 18, which all by itself is a challenge. And we're going to love them and help them grow in their freedom over time. And then with our graduate students, same thing. We're going to meet them where they are. Jesuits like to, you know, we go in their door to bring them out our door. We meet them where they are, and then over the course of a master's, a doctoral, or a bachelor's degree, we help them to become these reflective, thoughtful, engaged persons.
There's been a lot of talk about the business model being broken. Do you think higher education as we know it is going to disappear?
Anybody here have like a 17-year-old, 16, 17-year-old? Are you going to tell them a year from now, okay, you've finished high school, go to your room and spend the next 4 years online getting a college education? No. You know, MOOCs came along, and MOOCs, you know, I've never seen a business model where MOOCs make money. Massive open online courses. Hybrid is great. You know, our students do want a mixture of virtual and real. The future is high touch, high tech. But Jesuit education, USF, people want to come here. People need to come here. And our model of education will survive, you know, years from now. You know, USF will be celebrating 200 years, 250 years. You know, we'll have the partnership with Starfleet, you know, which will be located downtown.
Thank you. What haven't we touched on today that you'd like to add?
Well, I'll end where I began, which is just to thank you all for being present today, but to thank you much more deeply for the welcome I've received, and to thank you very much for the engagement that you have made and continue to make in this university. There is a transition advisory team and it's helping to plan out ways for me to interact with folks in meaningful ways. I've already begun, so I've been meeting, with Opinder's team and with Dave's team, and I've been meeting with staff, groups of staff and faculty. I'll continue to do that. I'll be meeting kind of with logical units, teams and divisions and departments going through the fall. But also at the same time, we want to overlay it with another structure, and that is we'll just get random groups of 25 or so people, and the only thing you'll have in common is that you work here. And then there'll be a little wine and cheese, and just a chance to have conversations, but also a chance for you to meet each other, and for you to kind of help me to get up to speed on your hopes and dreams and your current activities, and where we've come, where we are, and where we're going. And so I'm looking forward to those. So now you know what I look like. Not exactly like the magazine. I'm shorter than it looks there. They're taking these pictures from like down below. I'm all of 5'8", and I can't wear my hair up anymore. So, but please stop me. Stop me on campus and invite me to things. Let us know about celebrations of student accomplishments that are going to happen. Let me know about when students are going to be presenting. Let me know about when you're going to be presenting. Let me know when you have honored guests on campus. And I'll do my best to be present to this community as we move forward. So, and Jenny, thank you very much. I want to thank the vice presidents, the deans, the directors, the folks who. Tom Malloy is not here, but I was kidding with him the other day. He got 2 months of free work out of me. So I got here actually at the end of May, and June and July I was here meeting people and doing all kinds of stuff. And before I was on the payroll, but then I got back. So my first week I was out of the office. I was down in Los Altos on retreat, praying for the university and just asking God to continue to be good, as she always has been to me.